Hello, Americans. In four species, volume, science, slash S, and fast, beginners class, boxing. Decipher the word story is C, telling, omega, rising slash raising Y. It is a question per the decipher of the English language. That is America's language, distinctly, non distinctly, and simultaneously from how it is English. With that distinction left out too, because how it is the value of the identity of relationships the other languages sounds have too. A demonstration of how we are a volume science slash hyper volume science. Not only were the Native Americans revelations in history, memory, and organization, order of education, development from of the course that is actually hypernatively being demonstrated to ourselves before the sciences became tactically abridged, tactically criminally foreign influenced slash hypercriminal foreign influenced. This has and has had complete possession over all identities of sophistication, individually grouped and together since semi-ancient times. No matter how powerful any leader or group of leaders together could get, this breaching method knew they would have to be over all locations, areas, and states already as identity the ground. Volume slash hyper volume science manifest as criminal insidiousness, manifest reliant upon self value, criminally foreign influence, fact treatment, nature, qualities, aspects in nature itself as criminal insidiousness. I am not a lawyer. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a police forum. I'm not a judge. It was recorded those were inclusion. And our inclusion when subjects such as slavery are brought up. Greater than and more finite than, and while as the value of unrelated subjects, value to it, coming to it from it as it with important is an identity of relationship to the volume of the hyper simultaneous, that which is actually hyper simultaneously recorded. So we had originally and still too tactically, effectively, various natures of delusions. I'm not a doctor. Those doctors on that were and are still recorded roles with the crime scene slash hypercrime scene slash S as each modern country. So before our founders were even born, they forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded everyone without even realizing. While they were realizing for known reasons, everyone was demonstrably blaming, having what nature wanted us to say, how nature wanted us to understand uses of our words, and for what. This is about the body of value, a body of volume that is hyper invisible but still discernible. English and the other languages were revealed to teach this. Each of the sciences are obfuscated. Time treatments were made simultaneously too fast, too slow to get over on forever natures, which is one of the things that we agree that identity is. People will say we don't agree, and people here are representatives of people. Not just formally. They're not really representatives of us as that voice, as really how we are hyper additionally. For example, voicings of the grounds, identity of the ground locations, and then further into sciences. where and how they are manifest, where and how we are manifest syntactically as a value/value progression, as identities volume science / hyper volume science. See, we agree about this, but we have lawyers, for example, who get away and got away as collusions with the branches of government individually grouped in together, with those crime methods relative to subject treatments, as shock and awe relative to where forgiveness is also taught to us through the nature of religions, for example. So we could appreciate the first part of the Old Testament and of the Quran, for example, which no one allows because of collusions at all identity ground locations with uses of identity, all fake, worse than fake. And that being and having been used not just for the known, all that and the British government, when complete strangers, that insidiousness with uses of isms, with uses of democracy, the republic's name, defenses of that, with the logistics of logic. See the locations, these databases where we have mental health people involved with, and the formal interbranch and all private tied to them. Distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, they share database relationships. Now we also have to discern how communications is distinct. And non-distinct. There is nonverbal communication. There are nonverbal communications. The verbal, and there are hyper communications that are simultaneous. And what was recorded then and now still are identity grounds, identity of relationship to where and how we are syntactically manifest, where and how a quality of fact-cheaping nature is forced as criminal insidiousness, reliances upon fact-cheaping nature qualities and aspects in nature itself that is criminal insidiousness, and that criminal insidiousness in nature is of positive treatments and of negative treatments, and with the value of sequence treatments. What really is the quality of the time treatments and the subject treatments and the predicate treatments and the predicate act treatments. For example, but relative to and as subject treatments that have been forbid free speech, while others pretended. So screening, not just the causes and use of that, because the use is plural, where all that formal and everyone, strangers, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, it employed individually grouped and together. Defenses of criminally foreign influence, positive, negative treatments, names treatments. Wherever there's a positive or negative treatment, there's an identity treatment. There's a name treatment. The identity, the ground locations. We are the voicings of it now through systems tactically ulterior from its own, where its own is positive onto itself, or hyper especially positive onto itself. Here, where Earth has the temporary / lasting, increasingly valuable, only increasingly valuable, a special difference to the rest of space nature, space / existence. So, for example, Hartford Hospital has families from Wethersfield who have been roles with all kinds of crimes, with signatures and with lawyers and with judges and with themselves fabricating conversations, and with drugs and with people's names. They're putting fake things in databases because they've had roles at all crime scenes themselves. These are people tied to courts and to prisons, all private tied to them, on off the state judicial branch office, on off the state prison offices, the homes next to it. So the names, therefore the sense and sensibilities of people. Use Jane Austen's phrase. These are people involved with the corners of streets used, where and how they are being and having been used remotely. Everyone, since before our founders were born, slavery was entrenched North and South America. People don't understand this because it was still too entrenched. Our founders didn't have free speech. They had everyone. They had the counter extort the other founders, as themselves, to get James Madison's plan up there, Marbury versus Madison, and to get that written that the Constitution should be unabridged. Jim Crow laws are proofs that it was unabridged, let alone slavery. And what is proof of it too? So where you can see the method too is where they blame it on other things, others ourselves, and self-defend, as victims, but as victim predators. So you say they won't let us show how they are victims. Otherwise, they're attaching everyone and everyone around them to fake words too. They're still using crime methods, evidence perception, data reception methods, criminally foreign influence, everyone formally and informally. For example, like pretending people say that everyone else is bad, playing stupid with changing people's words to what they say. They make them say that there's conspiracy theories. President Kennedy said there's a conspiracy against this country. That's not a theory. Then he was killed. That's not a theory. Then people pretend passions and emotions. Regardless of their opinions, they leave out passion and emotions where it counts, where it's evidence, where if anyone denies the increasing value of understanding how before our founders were even born, a hyper-archetypal predicate acts delivery system method, a criminal insidiousness delivery system method, have been sustained upon the people as the Native Americans. And records are recorded still, even self-valued, not realized by anyone when they're defending, what they call practical or science. They left out how the records were all criminally foreign influenced, how those crazy laws, witch trials, even if they made the witch trials up, they still have applications now where and how the sciences are abridged, where and how they're leaving out things consciously when they make subject treatments at the colleges and universities, where and how a whole bunch of different countries that get along with each other or not, or what they call getting along. We have only known criminal insidiousness natures of peace, not hyper peace, since semi-ancient times. That is what nature's nature, and the increasing value of that simultaneously, distinctly, not distinctly, and hyper simultaneously itself is a demonstration of. Only the extent of it is debatable. It defined as the hyper simultaneous, the identity as the hyper simultaneous. Every word in the dictionary is a distinct identity of volume, of this hyper volume science. Hello, I'm not a doctor, Ron Adams, but I have doctors recorded involved with their patients and criminals, like a principal child abuser, their kids who were involved with them, Now they have roles with like upskirt pictures of girls in stores, on and off campus related, and they have roles of wire crimes with WFSB, and it's nothing personal against them. Only where they make it personal, like that. They have faked conversations with me. They tried to make fake exceptions. They attached me and everyone around me and my family to fake words. They even lied about the outcomes of legal cases with and to force the principal child abuser. They fabricated emails with WTNH. They recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with police forms on and off the parks of Wethersfield and Hartford, on and off as roles with uses of the sense and sensibilities of names of people on and off campuses involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders. That's one of the things the breaching method was and is sickly distinctly against every single person, because they weren't just replacing the Native American revelations and their means to, they tactically denatured the everywhere of Earth, even the most beautiful spots, because it's increasingly being demonstrated by nature what causes positive or negative value nature progressions, acts and natures. See, slavery was criminally legalized. Not just criminally legalized, it was hyper-criminally legalized simultaneously, forced all the roles with it. And with all kinds of crazy slavery laws, therefore, against everyone syntactically. The laws were about what you could say. If you tried to stand up against slavery outside of international monitored meetings and spots and times, they would hurt you that were enslaved. Then they would make some people, they will get them calling each other names. Everyone would just, the sense and sensibilities, Jane Austen's phrase. Reportedly, Jane Austen's phrase. I have to read Jane Austen. And they cry. What is mercia? What does that mean, Ryan? Of mercy. I mean, in other words, people only heard, quoted, the hid parts of any part of the Bible or the Quran, for example, but the first part. So they use knowledge, to get over in time treatments. So everyone glorifies scholar rather than academician. Scholar just means they went to different campuses. Between unconnected campuses, recorded effectively is how, even greater than slavery is of importance as a subject wherever it is, wherever all these other subjects are. How are people going to speak about the economy? And see that, in other words, these were assignments of the identities of humans, everyone, to and as identities tactically ulterior from those we are actually manifest as. And see, this kept all forms of sophistication / non-sophistication syntactically manifest relative to the database relationships at locations. So we have, how outside of courts, sickly distinctly from how inside of courts, sickly distinctly from how outside of interactions with the police, which they make up too, fake communication. They put fake things in database, fake communications with adults, and since they were kids, because they painted themselves in corners when I was a kid. So they have complete possession over identities of qualities of fact treatment nature that are criminally foreign influence, positive and negative treatments, identity treatments, sequence value treatments. Sequence shifts are effectively one of the things that they used and use effectively to keep women, roles, motivations, and natures also involved with child abuses against other, increasingly worse than what was used to abuse them, which is communications wise. The value of them lying and of their syntax having been used remotely as adults since they were kids and through other kids. So it's hard to discern, but the adults are using the kids remotely as roles with this, distinctly from how the kids are simultaneously too. Everyone is differentially but increasingly criminally foreign influenced because all that was applied for also came with other uses of the ground locations and of them simultaneously everyone, or they change us to fake words, or they keep everyone not saying anything. See, then only the fake people that are only to the maintenance of qualities of fact keeping nature that can't defend them, that can't defend ourselves. Any modern country, individually grouped and together. One of the proofs is how the ground is tactically denatured in the suburbs since before our founders were born. And that was part of the method to cause negative value nature progressions, active natures, to forge people reliant upon criminal insidiousness natures of means to cause positive value nature progressions, and simultaneously, therefore, syntactical defenses of that, increasingly incapable of affording discern how positive and negative and identity is wanting and needing to be spoken. So they have people with blame. They're blaming people as means to only force a quality of fact treatment nature that is not going to be, real, because it's going to bring revelations in all the sciences. It's going to show what's actually recorded, the database relationships at the locations, the sense and sensibilities of the voicings of those people leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and leading up to other wars. And in those contexts, these trade locations, they are manifest conjunctive to where we are identity of the ground, value/value progression syntactically manifest, where people to make opinions about economy, they're making opinions about subjects, leaving out, for example, again, that which is most overt/insidious simultaneously, where how the course of black pupils' whites of eyes, which is hyper clear, it is tactically abridged. So, and that was sustained before our founding parents were even born. In other words, so more and more they had replaced what the words and value treatments would have been formerly with courts, which we know were criminally foreign influence. There were roles with all crime scenes / the hyper crime scene as tools of and breaching screens for it. Because now there are all these other motivations, natures, needs, interests, knowns and unknowns, to use one of the United States representatives' voice. I forgot his name. So we have a world of victims, no matter how powerful a leader could get, even with other leaders. Nature system is not working in the suburbs. The worms used to walk into the puddles. We took away all the grass. Landscape theater. Imagine New York City is tactically. It was only allowed to be tactically denatured. That was sophistication here since before our founding parents, who had not free speech before they were even born. Those laws were conceived as means to sense through our own humanity, everywhere the identity of the species bodies, individual bodies are. You know, to sense and fear things rightfully, because they would have been hurt if they weren't entertaining positive negative treatments that were criminally foreign influence. So increasingly incapable of returning to the way, led by that which is the value of that which is actually hyper simultaneously recorded in a being, and that which is actually the value of sequence that came before the order of the smallest finite detail now, because it comes with means to discern the smallest detail now. So in the rain, the worms have a phenomenon where they walk into the water. They walk into the bodies of water like ponds, brooks, rivers. See, but now those peripheries to themselves, everything is tactically denatured. And then through other motivations, nature's needs, interests, and roles with means all reliant upon logic that with tactically criminally foreign influence qualities, aspects of nature, and tactically delusions wrought simultaneously. So that criminal insidiousness nature is simultaneously increasingly self-value too, with the defenses of people. Then they pretend it's personal too. They'll pretend it's personal if you call them delusions wrought. Meanwhile, they're forcing qualities of fact-cheap nature, things left out that are actually simultaneously recorded. Certain type of victim. See, nobody wanted to be which rolls with what uses them anyway. So they self-value too. The excuses and means to demonstrate that. So everyone knows that we're on systems that are not by our means. So one of the ways we could help the people hurt by that which is most tactically denatured. Therefore, most going to have nature demonstrate the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Also, though, too, addressing where and how that was applied. That was employed by a breaching method before the physical appointments or the order realized. That was still or greater than and more finite than it, while as complete possession of it. Still, they measure and maintain people incapable of defenses of fact treatments regarding the environment are incapable of not doing more damage and then keeping it obfuscated and other motivations apparent regarding nature's impositions, regarding nature's means to reveal, means out of nowhere. Evolution's fruits and gifts and means out of nowhere. Evolution science only feels like gain /S. This knew that fake sciences, would have to pretend integrity. This employed those natures of theater. So this employed. So there are wire crimes and why whole wire crime methods used effectively too, to use whole sense and sensibilities, narratives of people and their lawyers, planting evidences at locations, keeping stuff going on, pretending it's about roles with interbranch locations. See, they had roles with investigations, investigators, even with cases where they had predicate acts roles in the cases, illusions, no roles, but no one knows. No one realized. Way worse than illusions, no. These are worse than extortion methods. But in other words, where we have to discern where sickly, non-distinctly, everyone was hurt, to be able to counter and to help those hurt most by what sickly, non-distinctly hurts everyone, which was simultaneously more subtle while being more overt, while being missed because it was had employed the sense and sensibilities of every individual group and altogether every location, needing to hide live progressions from things already that transpired, relevant to where and how the potential for quality of fact achieving nature, capable of count and obligated to counter quality of fact achieving nature at all locations, areas, and states, incapable of being defended in ourselves at the same time from that which is the real causes of criminal insidiousness, wrongdoing at all locations, areas, and states since before our founders were born. The real causes of recorded effectively still with our modern campuses, even though we know they sustained it against Native Americans, not just taking their education, tactically denaturing it, replacing those words, replacing those revelations with tactical delusions and tactically, criminally, foreign influence, fact, nature, qualities, aspects, and natures. So nature is a value as criminal insidiousness, where it is an identity, the ground's identity of relationship to itself, where nature's nature and the value of that are bound. So with Sandy Hook in Newtown has roles with names at database locations, like O'Brien. There's a O'Neill. There are a whole bunch of names of people that I never had conversations with, like O'Neill police forums with Wethersfield Police, and there are teachers further with and reportedly a female one of a wife of O'Neill. I don't know what he looks like or what, from Wethersfield Police, who's involved with police intercities on and off campuses, further with the principal child abusers campus, and where they have their kids involved with this, and where they stack names, and then they pretend people had conversations with them, because these are the people involved with the only places people can go to counter the roles with themselves too, as roles with overt criminal enterprises with the area, times, where and how their syntax tied to locations and instances too, where they make fake exceptions and exception nature. Investigations and investigators have been used remotely since founding. That's one of the things, pounding drums. That's one of the things that is demonstrated, that we're aware of when we hear the subject slavery. And so we are aware also that and how other things, others, ourselves were blamed and are blamed. And people increasingly are not aware of that. We have self-valid roles and needs and uses of those tactical criminal foreign influenced words, tactical terror, than our founders really communicated us to say too. So it's against the law to pretend you're a journalist because they have license, because they're not supposed to tell lies. There are exceptions, for example, where and how, relative to where and how they have a whole bunch of countries as the countries in the news with the most critical issues like war, people getting killed. And while those same countries, Russia, America, Ukraine, the world over, Since before cars were even invented, we have the suburbs that were tactically denatured, self-valued, still tactically denatured. At least it's not that like New York City. All exception nature with wealth in New York City. Those were employed theaters, certain type of victim. No matter how powerful anyone could get, any leader, anyone, criminal and ceaseless nature of positive and negative treatments at all locations, areas, and states with each regarding subjects treatments, regarding the most critical things. The human species wants our elderly and any spots need to. You guys put like economics. Oh, but this company and we have to make money. You have to fix the breaching method. Put isms out there. Put fake sides. Put arrays in collusion. Again, with criminally foreign influence, fact treatment, nature qualities, aspects, nature's uses. Knowing that nature would demonstrate that at all locations, they would preemptively, actively, and progressively increasingly need to hide lies, sequence shifts, natures of identity theft, frauds, collusions as instances, needs to pretend that other people say everyone else is bad, needs to change people's words and keep things like that. It's relative to where, relative as part of the answers to where and how that which we all want said and defended against syntactically is not said. And we have no defenses of it. In fact, we have collusions with it. The prisons tied to the anti branch are still recorded since founding, how kept needing to hide lies with this and lie progressions and physical delusions and uses of themselves remotely at other locations before they even became associated with, in other words, they have crimes with their patients and criminals before they even got caught, and against innocent people to force that not caught before they were caught. But everyone's missing that relative to where and how actually the quality of subject treatments is manifest. And also relative to where and how. I can't believe people would fake things and make things up with serious things like shootings and kids' schools. But that's what all these fake sides are doing as arrays too, also used, including the courts involved with it. Now, these are people involved with the same names involved with the World Trade Center in Manhattan, and with sequence ship post-dated documents had been presented to the Ninth Circuit Court and a panel of judges right before the World Trade Center attack in Manhattan, in that court right next to it. Same people have been roles of predicate action, sequence shift, stacking fake things into databases in Connecticut courts with fake communications and ties to little kids. The police themselves, even because they painted themselves planting evidences with syntax tricks. Then they bring themselves with instances before courts that leave out all kinds of things, and their roles with how they have a function by how the kids from the youngest age, like Debbie Gold, I don't know her. She pretended to know me. She was directed to pretend passions and emotions behind my back, and to my face, as a means to pretend that I had communications with her before that. For example, I don't know what they did, but they do. A whole bunch of people connected to her did the same thing, different ways. But one of the things they did was timed roles, putting fake things in databases, and with predicate action and legal cases and with federal criminals since before they were caught, and with people with federal, some of them as co-defendants of Robert Luskin in a 2006 district court case, part of a case in Connecticut. Robert Luskin is a former standing chairperson of Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act. which deals with predicate acts and with criminal insidiousness. But he and other nations had and have roles on and off the campuses, intercities through time. They've been planted with the same names that have been planting at child campuses, fake things into databases, speaking things behind people's backs, including in our faces. A girl said something to a female principal or vice principal at my high school regarding when we had a protest for the a police corruption. It was the beating of Rodney King, but it was not how they described how it came to be, and then how she looked at me and said, "What are we going to do?" They made it look like it was, it was my idea. When I came around a corner, I said it real quick because these are people that were put at corners, and to make look. In other words, this is interstates manifest, where the identities of the law, the jobs of the law, have been increasingly perfectly unchallenged, left used remotely, criminally foreign influence, simultaneously delusions raw. That also being used at those locations formal is increasingly being and having used at other locations. Other natures of corruption manifest where statistics are manifest. Now, those locations where studies and things and research is done, they are also kept criminally foreign influence. That is effectively used to keep as part of the answers to where and how they kept and keep free speech from demonstrating fake sciences. Lies and delusions manifest at all locations, areas, and states, and relative to such critical things. People needing to pretend other have styles force needed. So they pretend it's just about voting. Oh, you don't really have constitutional rights if you vote. It's the other side's fault. That's because both sides have been used remotely, pretending they could speak. I'm not a lawyer. Judge Napolitano, he's right though. The FBI is not something that the Constitution dictates we must respect, especially when there's so many recorded demonstrations of them criminally foreign influence, delusions, raw uses of their name, of our names, of value treatments, of time treatments, sequence treatments, of reactions, of subject treatments, of guns, of this. Bring up the predicate acts method. Bring up remote uses individually grouped and together. They had and they still have these fake countries. All exception nature and demonstration is the same thing. All of us, all of our countries, we have voices that are offensively to the maintenance of roles with remote uses of, the predicate acts with the news, and with them pretending that we're attacking them, and forcing qualities of fact-keeping nature with such to keep all crime scenes and the hypercrime scene blaming other things, others, or ourselves, even when correct, tactically wrongly, and screening way worse, using and having used at all locations. Same way computers work. Identities of temporary positive or and sequence that relationship, the value of that only increasing, is what makes computers work. That's because of what makes language work. So we are this hypernative system that we have been forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to these other. So there's also an officer Poison. I don't know what he looks like. He's one of the there are police forms reported, confessed, and demonstrated in our courts. There are various courts, family members, and intimate ties. Hartford courts in the Britain Superior Court, other Connecticut courts involved leading up to the World Trade Center attack. They had been using investigators, and narratives regarding that to guys, where and how that and other things in themselves and everyone around them are being and having been used remotely to keep live progressions hid, where and how that's what is used remotely, where and how all roles with the identity theft / fraud / slander method singular against everyone sickly distinctly sickly non-distinctly, to keep that from being countered, because it has conjunction with and further relativity with further names and with the same names that are being brought into these things. So Alex Jones, his website, or somewhere on Facebook or somewhere, I tried to get to report something tied through him. You can't get a response from them. Everyone will not follow mandated law. When someone says there's something, this child abuse, one of the ways they get away with this too, you make a simple sentence over the phone, and they have people hang up to pretend there was a sentence. I never had a conversation with Weathersfield Pizza has rules on off the state judicial branch offices too, in Weathersfield, with people on off Central Connecticut State University, involved with Weathersfield Police and other police forms, and people from other countries in areas of overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and as people involved with foreign and domestic military. Also with racketeering and stuff like that, and child abuses on off Elm Street and Rocky Hill. And I know also that people of Elm Street and Weathersfield also involved with that. In the corner of Elm Street and Route 3, which goes by the state judicial branch offices. No, all along Route 3 are names with sense and sensibility. They have roles that were brought up when I caught them forcing child abuses and getting away with it by fabricating emails, putting fake things written on Facebook, narratives tied to it. All exception nature and demonstration, the same thing. Fake emails too, simultaneously with that. They also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They involved little boys and girls at the campuses, with off campuses maintained off their homes too. Then on off them through other motivations, natures, needs, interests. They kept and keep the interbranch and the private tie to them through time. Needed to hide what they were used for remotely, about where and how investigators are used remotely with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and insidiousness of people A through Z with their fact signature qualities and aspects. Kept needing to hide same lie progressions, roles with that really, what keeps that same stupid and that same fake integrity of genius employed tactical ulterior from its hyper-native course. So there is also a man named Emmett, who is one of and there are other, who is one of the leaders of the kids, further involved with some people on the child abuse registry, and further with the principal child abuser, who was involved with various natures of abuses of kids and uses of the campuses for federal crimes and other natures of cases, and with other natures of corruption. There are uses of unions, like people involved with construction unions and the companies associated with them, and like with their narratives, with the building of the Wethersfield schools, and with the upkeeps of them. And and with safety, they have the officers involved with the safety, involved with identity theft frauds, and methods where they keep confessions and demonstrations of people being differentially criminally foreign influenced, sequentially, and then progressively, increasingly kept needing to hide the same lies and lie progressions from people who did that at younger campuses. So they have people with Westbrook involved with a Ray Reynolds too. I never had a conversation with him in my life. I had a conversation in a car in Vermont. They put illusions to make it look like I knew these people. I figured out what it was about. Too with Paul Zano too. Same thing. I never. That's why he was so never saying anything. I didn't say anything either. It was boring when there was exceptions. They make it fake exceptions of people from the past because they use this through time. They use it times. They had time uses of it where I caught more with the people that answer the families that answer phones for the police and for the news media. They have retired and standing into branch and all private tied to them, recorded how we use remotely originally still. So we're going to use. So we need to do a YouTube ground video, and who we need to get someone who cares about, who wants to gather, what everyone thinks into a form that could defend itself, where everyone's going to jump in and force, uses of our identity abridged. We got to go full hyper native. For the species body, we have to train as one. We have to do it for America. So we have to do it not just for the species body everywhere. We have to do it. We have to use that as our guide. The Legion stride. Some not. Some rest. Vaccine. I taught best. So we have means like this, out of nowhere. We just got to keep it real and hyper real simultaneously, which will show where truths are being and haven't been used for lies, where truths are being and haven't been plotted between lies, where and how mistakes were and are made in cases, purposely and also not knowingly. And then they have no recourse to that. Where and how they have torture methods that our founders communicated for us to fight and overcome syntactically. But they're still being used. They were being used before the World Trade Center attack. Then they forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded for their own needs, self-culture, self-value, not used remotely by the breaching method, but blame other things other than themselves. I forgot what the point was. So, but the World Trade Center attack, I'm one of the people that was in the Ninth Circuit Court, and at locations right next to the World Trade Center, leading up to it and in it. There are people intercities who are involved with investigators in Connecticut, who are also timed as ones on and off campuses I went to, and with names tied from campuses before that. In other words, they're planting fake natures of relationships between people, fake relationships between people, faked, So we could take, this is the idea for the narrative, for a film agency. So we could afford our own means, our own artistic means for artistic reparations, where and how really what are needed are injunctive reliefs and our needs for us to have free speech and our constitutional values unabridged, especially how they have been abridged offensively, preemptively, increasingly actively, and increasingly other ways per uses of that and per the nature of that as criminal and citizen natures of positive treatments or negative treatments. So it's very simple what I said to you guys. The Connecticut News also attached me to fake word and others to fake words about legal cases. As ones there was post-dated documents also that were post-dated from inside the court. People aren't supposed to take documents and insidiously post-date them to make them appear late before the panel of judges in the Ninth Circuit Court right before the World Trade Center attack hit. That was proven after the World Trade Center attack. And because of that, it led to a 2006 district court case in Connecticut tied to the Ninth Circuit Court in Manhattan. Now, with one of the defendants in the case is the former standing chairperson on Racketeering, Influence, and Corrupt Organization Act, the RICO statute. So he's one of the ones involved with the journalists, with uses of the need to have a journalist license to speak for the news, where and how it is employed, where they use the right to lie, where they don't have the right to lie, which is also a phrase reportedly by a guy reportedly named James Comey, who also looks like he might be exactly the guy who's one of the guys involved with New Britain Superior Court and courts throughout the world, and with what I call manifest on our side, but it is there too because these are people that are recorded since they were kids, demonstrated, confessed, and confirmed by the same way differentially about others too from the other countries. People that I went to school with are recorded. Influence to this. I don't know Ray Reynolds. I just know that he's involved as one of the names. There's also the name Colello that Bob Chase associated with a forensics location. And Joshua Julian has roles with the principal child abusers campus with him and digital crimes. And there are crimes with their patients and criminals before they got caught and against innocent people. And they have simultaneous delusions that are relevant because those are also being and haven't been applied as for uses as roles with predicate acts that are fact treatment nature oriented, data reception, evidence reception, and identity reception oriented. And this where and how we're going to reveal a quality of fact treatment nature capable of speaking for and through to overcome at last, quote, at last, quote, Mr. King, Maxine, the holidays, so we keep the simultaneous. So we discern this hyper simultaneous correctly. Because it's not, that's evident, even in other words, the worms are no longer in the soil. So we have to deal with how everything's tactically in nature, how the positive value, the needs to cause positive, have positive value progressions. There are millions of people reliant upon mass farming now. There are mass farmers that are syntactically possessions other ways, but those ways are all bound too by the same method that hurts everyone sickly, non-distinctly. So we have to we have to have the re-education of the human species, and we can't tell other countries what to do. But we could just do it for the species in a way that enables them to see simultaneously. Everyone wants to do it. Everyone wants to admit that and for example, in Russia, Ukraine, and America, if any voice tries to deny that the suburbs are tactically denatured, let alone the urban, their logic and defenses of it is going to exhibit, it's going to have manifest with it physical delusions, metaphysical delusions, you know, and identity delusions, distinctly, not distinctly, and simultaneously. I'm not a lawyer, but I'll delineate their delusions from their criminally foreign influenced natures and souls relevant to their crimes with their patients and criminals before they got caught. And against others and myself, fake conversations with me. The same ones rolls with the houses on my street with people directly and indirectly tied to the Wethersfield police that are directly and indirectly tied to the co-defendants of former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and their roles timed with the principal child abusers campus, on and off Fox Connecticut News, on and off locations next to WFSB, involved with wire crimes with them too, whole wire crime methods with their phones too, involved with the emails. Now these are also facilitated differentially per the court's involvements and per the even military. Their military switching names is one of the things non-distinctly that is a part of the distinct crime methods manifest as the branches, every individual of them, self-valued roles with them individually grouped and together crime methods, where they are used remotely too for other one that everyone missed. For all that left, fake integrity, people speaking about what's adult as roles, as women roles, speaking about what's adult and their care where pretend passions and emotions, real passions and emotions care for their kids, but they're mixing it with fake ones. Now, they did that with the principal child abuser while they were fabricating things into databases. And while they were putting their motives up, while they had other motives there too, because when they were little kids, the people that were 2 times, there were people that were put in my classes so they could take, because they had possession over kids. They were involved with programs, trainings of police forms and courts and their socials and who speaks to who saw who where and who's a liar, who's not. Those pretend you're lying because they had you walk. They took a picture of you walking by someone. People I don't even know at all, mixed with the people that is what is actually recorded. It shows remote possession of investigations through time. Even the witness protection program and a reported killer associated with that. And the guy killed and the person next to the body finds a family next to the body dumping spot per them. And confirmed on Facebook, also associated with the Dillon family, also involved with crimes with fire departments and medical locations with Russians against Russians and Americans against Americans, like, for example, with psychology, psychiatry, these databases, the ones tied to the courts and the prisons, they've been sticking fake things in their databases together as their roles with crimes at locations, including how women have self-valued roles with child sex offenders and self-valued roles, using how no one wants that. Uses of that remotely too relevant because they can't put anything on paper. They can only speak about emotions too. Fake, because emotions are about the simultaneous relative to what's really going to cause positive or negative value nature progressions. Action needs. It's all right. People have opinions other. But that's what real science demonstrates. See, but no one ever lets the simultaneous / hyper simultaneous be its words in course. So, like what? How many different countries that were fighting with each other? England and France and Spain. They were killing each other. They're white. They call it white. Asian people were involved with colonization here, there too. Everyone was criminally foreign influence here, there. Everyone was uses of identity trying to counter, and those counters were implied to the defense of themselves, self-value. That was the trap. That is the trap. We are not hyper native. That's the value increasing of discerning it, how the ground below everyone's feet, and hyper additionally, how below the feet of Native Americans, the waters, conjunctions to it, are means to reveal the ground, nature's identity of relation to itself that reveals positive value nature progressions. Means out of nowhere. It's the generator. It's the electrical engineering of hypergeneration. If honesty would let discern the science means, one way redeems, it's the hypernative pure law. As each, the species body longs to train boxings. So then one of the things they do, they use evidence of what people wrote online. They have it as a fishing trap. Not fishing, a hunting trap, but not in other words, setup trap, a framing trap. And that is all enrolls with that, and those motivations and apparent needs were used for worse and are used for worse. So I have to get the streets names, but there's a so for example, there's a Justico Vinskus, I don't know his brother's name, and a whole bunch of people tied to him and Subway Bajario involved with some courts and men and women involved with interbranch and police forms and prisons and forensics locations that have been planting evidence as identity thefts and frauds as strangers and as exceptions used criminally too, where and how they've been roles with judges speaking fake things into records, as roles with other natures of, or as roles with, while as other distinct natures of organized crime, but also with other ones, also relevant to where and how these questions have gone unanswered, how people could partake with things like slavery, because they were slaved. Everyone had to be to partake, including everyone's slave. Everyone had to take. So we have to counter who's hurt sickly distinctly by that the most, and you don't go by color with this. You go by how color is coarse is taken to the other assignments. Computers work through the phenomena of the value of sequence and the value of what is actually simultaneous, or the value of the simultaneous and the value of sequence, and the identity of locations. So they agree. And those identities are given additional identities. But what we are observing is the obfuscation of our natural course, but by 1/3/5 manifest, distinct, non-distinct, and hypersimultaneously connected identities of sequence/simultaneous nature, as perception is from inside, and with only extent of its complete volume, of its complete nature of relationship to itself, and of it only increasing value of that. But those three things, how they are bound with and where, and how even the smallest thing is and became manifest or becomes manifest. See, we're working with evolution science, and it should only feel like game slash S everywhere at once, or we should sense, you know, we're not evolution science, especially regarding, for some, no, this left us worse than a war zone. You have to fix the worst in a war zone before you get down to the economic treatments. And if you want to debate that, you have to open up a quality of fact treatment nature that will show. It has a sense of you can't afford what is actually recorded, formally manifest, speaking for what's adult, what's not, how they've been getting away with it. You explaining exception nature. You know what I'm saying? Someone followed mandated law because they switched names into branch when I was at those locations. If I tried to get them on writing, they won't put anything in writing because they make fake exceptions. So if they pretended they put fake exceptions also was a raise, because the Wethersfield police through time have roles with FBI and other agencies and their family members and intimate ties, also with overt criminal enterprises, plural, and private ones originally and still. How they are kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts for private, finite active progressive, identity theft, fraud, slanders, instances, roles, natures, needs, uses for it, narratives. In other words, we have to address this up front where and how they're using. They use a kid, Ray Reynolds, from my kindergarten class, involved with names, involved with predicate acts right now with the confessions of the Wethersfield police over the phone. They're switching names still at that location, fabricating fake conversations, ties to me. Like with Mendez brothers, also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with predicate acts with child offenders on off the Wethersfield Police Department and on off the New Britain Superior Court and on off other locations and campuses, intercities through time. It has a number of names at Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College in Yukon and Quinnipiac, Johnson and Wales, involved with this. So that's very simple. Make sure that they fix the fake conversations with me and others about the World Trade Center attack. They started trying to bring in fake things and make fake things about what I said online, because these people, anything I did stupid online too, there was a reason for it, because you can't get these people onto paper. So you start to take the pictures of people tied to them. I don't know those people. In other words, but they started this. Then they start talking. They start making more confessions online. And I realized the reason they're doing that because they're making it look like their fighting or their motives are for one thing, and they're making it look like there were communications in the past or ties to us in the past that weren't at all. And and sometimes there were exceptions, and they wouldn't be able to afford that exception demonstrated because it's involved with their uses of corners, where they have been fabricating evidences per little syntax tricks at corners of buildings, uses of corners of streets where someone says, "Oh, you know that person," and they're lying about how you're even in the car with that person. What led up to you being in the car with the person? It has something to do with predicate acts roles and wrongdoing roles on and off Trinity College and the campuses near it, little kids' campuses, and houses next to it are involved with names that are involved with, even judges and prosecutors speaking and furthering people's speaking and typing fake things into the databases, which is sicker than most crimes that they get all pretend passions and emotions to be against, really against. But in other words, this is sickly distinctly employed every difference, every identity of positive and every identity of negative treatment, tactically incapable of being syntactically defended and of affording defenses from the breaching method that uses the course that is that of the black pupils and the whites of eyes, abridged. So Little Rap Guy and Friends, a cartoon character to help us too. No, so he made the black pupils as an anti-archetypal criminal enterprise. Then they had to change it to be an anti-hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise. So the whole species, the whole cartoon value nature system, for example, was extorted and enslaved the way leading up to the Revolutionary War and since. Americans have stayed, colonists stayed, Native Americans that whole time, additionally, hyper-additionally now, all those narratives relied upon because they need to keep everyone out of everyone's mouths what nature was demonstrating. The hyper-native course was stolen. Others being and having been replaced. Now one has grays, vaccines. I teach you things. Yeah, you guys, so the mandated law, what it really says is when someone says that they caught someone hurting kids. I didn't even get to report this over the phone too, because all this stuff brought it up. They lie about lie about what people talk about over the phone. They coached the principal child abuser, but there are proofs that he had roles with this through time. There are Spada families and that are associated with some judges and with boyfriends of theirs that are also involved with the judicial community and with judges and prosecutors and their family members through time, involved with the houses, with the families that answer the phones for the Wethersfield police, that are involved with the ones with my area that were in my age range I had nothing to do with. And the other one we came in when I was in fourth grade into my grade. Never had a class with him in that school. From 1 to 6th grade, I never had a class with him. I never had a class with some of the people with Rick C.M. Faglione either, 1st to 6th grade. Tim O'Brien, the executive police forms, the judicial police forms, areas of overt criminal enterprises, a whole bunch of different countries, and their roles with locations, identities at the state judicial branch offices, on and off the state prison offices, and military, foreign and domestic. Also, white power military themed and black military themed. Roles on off Yukon, for example. Uses of these campuses, sciences, locations too, the department's location, because there's remote uses of the science and the identity the sciences share. When you bring up slavery, that identity is demonstrated to us. The sociologists had some worse than impositions, and roles, if speaking, for pretending that science spoke any one of them. That's relevant to every single science, something like that. When you bring up a subject like that. But again, and the reason is denied because not only is it denied, where and how all those things were assigned additional values. So it could hurt us there, but not let us use that which is overtly / insidiously true simultaneously. Not let us to examine and show and tell on it. So in other words, there's also people that were in my 6th grade class had something to do with the Russians, and now one of them is a teacher at the school now too. So they have all these teachers at the schools and leaders of the kids involved with this method that makes people speak through others. where and how the foreign and domestic are kept needing to hide the same life progressions and motivations for it and justifications of it. They don't have integrity. They don't have integrity. We know this. We use what's true always, not denying the slightest exception the value of it. There are excuses for the people of New York City, even where they have no excuses for what they did, and sometimes probably had to do. You know, no, even killing people. It's all on them. When someone kills someone, you have to counter that. You have to punish that person for killing. See, but before that killing, they have roles with extortion, the people that are punishing people. So increasingly, they're even probably setting up people up because we know to an extent they've been setting people up and they've been hiding their live aggressions and how they've been getting away with it. A whole bunch of methods, narratives and motivate that come with motivations narratives. There's also what they call training, not by accident because these are intercampuses, private campuses, public. There are connections made for them. So further, some judges and people associated with them with Middletown courts and forensics locations also rolls with the names through time involved with a witness protection program and with the body dumping spot of Billy Grasso as people involved with corners of streets and involved with predicate acts on off Trinity College and CCSU and UConn and wrongdoing and child abuses and switching names roles with the interbranch because they've been planting evidences also with verbal tricks and motivations, narratives, also relative to the sequence, the value of what sequence truth. These are people that have been doing this between campuses through time. And their conjunctions to people who went to private campuses and time theater. And so they pretend they make people make descriptions of what people say. I'm only asking to get someone's name on paper. They've been hiding much from Judge Napolitano, for example. So I asked him on social media because you can't. They have wire crime acts and methods that prevent me from asking the police over the phone. In other words, I'm doing damage control until I get them done with. I'm going to correct all the police interstates because I'm going to show you we're going to do it together because we're going to understand this together. We're going to observe how the former director, the former standing chairperson on racketeering influence in the Corrupt Organization Act, the RICO statute, people involved with counters, with our needs to counter, in collusion with what we need to counter as predicate acts delivery system method, as the criminal insidious nature delivery system method, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously as the hyper-invisible method that is still discernible, that comes with the subject of slavery, that comes with those simultaneously additional assignments as additional identities and identities of value progression and uses of them. Yeah. So means appear. So also respond for Wethersfield schools, and there's a man named Emmett, and they have roles with the FBI with the narratives and the counters to each other where they hurt each other. CNN and Fox News, and where they come together too. CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC. These are both political parties have roles with what I caught them doing at election spots involved also. It is even some ways unsafe to vote. And it is, all we need to have is mandated law followed truly. And what's actually honest and hyper honesty will be revealed. All it will show the truths being and haven't been used for lies, the truths being planted between lies, and how that was is used, and it will show the remote uses of the motivations needed because it knew that nature was the breaching method knew that nature was going to demonstrate. Nature itself was going to demonstrate itself to us, to our needs to speak tell on it. So it made all these styles nature's needs of logic that can't afford. Logic, unobstructed, it can't afford its voice slash voicings. So leading up to the World Trade Center attack and since, people involved with wire crimes, with the Connecticut news media, journalists, and with journalism, the schools they went to. There are journalists with New Britain newspaper, also involved, with the television journalism on off Central Connecticut State University, where and how also it is easiest to discern their roles with the FBI and CIA and military, foreign and domestic, leading up to the World Trade Center attack, as their roles with collusions with people interstates and as people that are criminally foreign influenced with their family members through time, and roles also uses of the corners of buildings with their identity theft, fraud, slander method, and the relevance of that, where how things, in fact, treatment nature, unfolded other than they pretended. As people sicker and way bad, worse methods recorded roles and collusions than the people they're putting in jail. And what sick, fake punks, delusions, rot they have there because of their roles too from the same campuses. Central Connecticut State University. They have Gail King. Then they have they have celebrities attacked, but they have the people right outside the justice's house, and they don't arrest them. There is no such thing as a right to assemble too. So they've been using such to fabricate things into databases, and they know your names before you know theirs, because they already have complete possession over it's only 3 branches of government, tons and tons of names. They never had integrity relative to subject treatments like slavery, like Native American rights, therefore our own, no matter who you are. Yeah. So Weathersfield police switched names. They have a whole bunch of names involved with it. A Dillon family, an Anna Dillon, and these are crimes with the branches of government locations and crime methods. These are judges and prosecutors as victims, but as victim predators that are offensively preventing people from telling how they're victims because it requires a quality of fact treatment nature they can't afford, because it will show how they were already victim predators, already delusions raw, already pretending and even believing other. So it requires, and they've been calling everyone names. So we have to have experts on things like this. And I could show you, I can make them. I'm not even a doctor. I'll delineate their delusions from their criminally foreign influence, fact treatment nature, qualities, aspects, and natures involved with this. So some of us, we need to get, demanding. I get a response. And for the interbranch switching names involved with the child abuse principle, same names are involved with the World Trade Center, on off the state judicial branch offices, on off the prison offices, witness protection program, all brought up by the same instance. How many people you come in contact with when you have to keep going back to courts for the same issue / S, all fake, increasingly fake, and they prevent you writing? They should fear God and say sorry to Judge Napolitano right now. Why has he not responded to me? I need a response from this campus right now. They've been using the campus, attaching me and everyone around me to fake words with each other and with others. because they've been attaching everyone to fake conversations about legal cases. They have federal crimes with the federal criminals in since before they were caught, even timed on the campuses and uses of the corners. They can't afford the fake exceptions they made where they're pretending to know that I know people that I don't know at all, like this Joshua Julian recorded involved, and the others on off the Trinity College. Do they have the deans of? They have a Dean Alford, and or someone who was pretending to be him because they switched the names on Facebook too. Involved with the people involved also with sexually themed and other natures of themed crimes and rape threats against me and little kids. Sexual threats to poison them with drugs, but that weren't even responded to yet because I want to do that on paper and I want the person's name clarified. It's a whole bunch of people with a Leahy family, men and women involved with formal drugs and medicines crimes with kids on my street, and with gangs, drugs and medicines crimes on my street, and roles with falsified police reports, identity thefts and frauds, wire crime roles, falsified police reports. One time I yelled for 3 days till they would get me, till someone would call the police without me telling them why. Till all exceptions and exception nature that appear to be in demonstration of other are also in demonstration the same thing. And I'm warning them not to use those excuses. And I'm not trying to hurt people. No, they're locked into roles of predicate act. So get someone on the paper, because there's a police chief years ago, one or more. There was one of them associated with reportedly his girlfriend was involved with a house that was involved with violence and worse, and natures of identity thefts and frauds. With a police chief years ago, and with a police chief Cintron. Now he has a daughter named Jessica Cintron. That is I never met. John Maiano and others recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed involvements with them. Like, for example, with Elm Street in Rocky Hill, and with Central Connecticut State University, and with coaches of football teams and of sports teams that are involved with, uses of their sensitivities where they lie to people and put sequence shifts and attach people to fake conversations to keep other people needing to speak about that, and people don't want their names spoken about. See, they brought up things from the past when they bring up these issues, and this is like some of the crime methods the courts do. They'll make and people tied to them and the police forms. They'll make statements to you and walk away. They'll switch names. They'll make confessions coupled with police reports where they switch the names of the arresting officers. In other words, you guys understand what I'm saying. These are people associated with Sandy Hook, Newtown, with further recorded then and now criminally foreign influence uses of child campuses, and people associated with the name Lonzo. Weathersfield Interbranch has roles with that, and is also observed on Facebook. They have Weathersfield Police Department's Facebook page also has men and women associated with the police forms with them, switching names, forging names, with child offenders. Because you guys were raised as, you can't speak for the law without self-valuing truths having been used for lies, and lies pretended to be truths, and truths put between lies. And so you cannot afford the revelations that come from for example, discerning simultaneously how sickly distinctly not Native Americans were/are forced not to have are actually want. Everyone knows that they want and need to have nature Like that will help to do nature, not just go to the park and put the plastic in a barrel. I'm saying fixed nature's denatured. We're in suburbs designed by the colonization with slavery north and south since before our founders were even born. They used the truth that the South and North were forced to fight about slavery just to disguise roles that the North had with it, even while countering it, because our founders had that entrenched deeper than they and greater than they could afford to counter. All they could get, they had to do a plan just to get up unabridged, say would tell us to get the Constitution unabridged, and to sciences are abridged, the Constitution's unabridged. What nature is demonstrating with our black pupils, whites of eyes. Those words are abridged, so the Constitution is abridged. They're putting fake things in. If you make the proper fact treatment to each age of fact treatment nature, through other people's motivations, nature needs, interests, people from off those locations have them locked. Will have them, hurt you. Or also attach you to fake words, fake identities, or sequence relationships, and produces of that where and how investigators are being and haven't been used remotely. That's one of the things that Jim Crow laws is about. But it's also one of the things that the counters to it was and is about. Was and are about. The counters to Jim Crow laws were also effectively being used by that breaching method that employed everyone to blame other things, others, ourselves for what it caused. That is increasingly caused to negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. There are shootings, for example, one reason because we're not using evolution science. It does not feel like games. So it is not science. Science brings evolution. So nature uses positive and negative distinctly from. Nature is not defined by nature's nature and the value of that. Not leaving out the smallest finite detail of value, like the value of sequence true. The sciences are abridged and they are self-valued. Modern countries self-value the sciences abridged since semi-ancient times. Control the minds. So everyone understands this. We need to get a name on paper because they use wire crime acts and methods, including the news, has been using the right to lie. They're hiding between how they have people from the other countries. Here and there too, our countries are shared as identities of law that are abridged. Bismillah. First part of the Old Testament says all you have to understand is right up to here. With the sciences share an identity and the people will come together. You guys failed because you heard fake sciences. And the reason they got away with that is for this method that effectively employed other identities of interest and of needs offensively to sense and to hurt, even preemptively, a quality of honesty that would use our actually inherent active and progressive means syntactically. And they'll attach that person to fake words. They'll attach everyone to fake words. Fake, they'll change. Oh, it's a summary. I didn't understand. All they're doing on the news is making allegations against people. More and more, they're self-valuing roles with stuff proven wrongly. How many things they proved wrongly, even when they proved they're right, with courts that were involved with witch trials, even if it was made up, even if it's only where and how it is being and haven't been applied. per roles with the uses of each age of fact, keeping nature sickly distinctly now. We don't have legitimate scientific experts. So many ways. They don't have the sense and sensibility to allow what is adult to speak. All Whisper Creek. Oh, okay, thank you. Mother!